Welcome to Hiring International Students, What You Need to Know. This is our agenda for this short webinar, so it's approximately 30 minutes. First off, I just want to introduce myself. I'm the Employer Relations Manager for our Work Integrated Learning and Cooperative Education Department here at Dalhousie University. And I also have another Teresa Inacio at the International Center at Dalhousie University. Teresa, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Teresa. Welcome, everyone. As Teresa mentioned, my name is Teresa Inacio. My role at the International Center is International Student Advisor and predominantly advise on immigration matters for students. Over to you, Teresa.
All right, thank you. So I just want to quickly go through a couple of quick slides just to give you some overview of Dalhousie. So we have over 21,000 students. 62% are from Oda province with 23% international students. Many of our students embark on work terms across Canada and internationally. And as a whole, we have over 3,400 students taking part in co-op and internships each year. This is just a quick summary of our departments at Dal that work around student, intern, and grad recruitment. So you can see our Department of Work Integrated Learning and Cooperative Education. We have 29 programs. We have our colleagues in Management Career Services. So they have the B-Commerce, Bachelor Management, Corporate Residency MBA, and the Masters of Public Administration. Then we have our Bissett Student Success Center, which is where you can post your full-time, part-time, summer, casual, or volunteer opportunities, and all of this is done at no cost. So I quickly mentioned this, but this is who we are as a WIL Co-op. We support students in 29 programs across 4 faculties and 1 college. Everything from architecture, computer science, engineering, planning, science, and sustainability. And just within our department, we support approximately 2,400 work terms per year, and we're growing. So this is really why hiring international students is good for your business. One, it's a great way to access that global talent pool. Skilled and motivated candidates, potential future hires with the postgraduate work permit. They have diverse perspectives and global insights, which is always good for business, supporting Nova Scotia economy. And there's no need for LMIA, which Teresa will talk about as we move forward with co-op work permits, study permit, work conditions allowed to work 24 hours per week off campus. So that's just good for you to know in general about why hiring international students is good for your business. And over to you, Teresa.
Thank you. And now we're going to get into a little bit more of the immigration requirements or regulations surrounding co-op students and co-ops in general. So before I do, I just wanted to let you know that the information presented here could be subject to change without notice. So it's always good to go to the original source, which is the IRCC website, for the most updated information on co-op work permits. Okay. So what is this co-op work permit? So a co-op work permit is issued to international students who are in a mandatory program, and it's very much connected to their studies, and it applies. So their study permits is very much connected to it and usually has the same length. And this permit is only valid for this work integrated learning. It's not utilized to work in any other type of job. The other thing that's very important for employers to know is that there is no LMIA, so no labor market impact assessment is required on behalf of the employer in order for these students to obtain a co-op work permit. The co-op permit is also a type of open work permit. And there's a lot of different types of open work permits, as you might know, but this one in particular is for that student. And that open work permit, of course, means that they can work with any employer in Canada in any location. And sometimes, even though I've said that, all the co-op permits don't necessarily indicate the employer. And because of that, they always indicate the institution, because it is the institution that essentially approves the co-op placement and the job. And that's why the employer is noted there as Dalhousie University as an example. And it's also a default for IRCC when they are processing the work permit, because they obviously don't know the multiple possible employers that the student can have at that point in time when they apply. So in case you have never seen a co-op permit before, this is what it looks like. And it looks very much like a study permit, but in this case, of course, it says work permit up top. Information there is pretty much the personal information of the student, their name, their date of birth, their citizenship, and also the issue date of the permit and the expiry date of the permit. Of course, it'll have the employer there as the institution, and any further conditions or restrictions that may be applicable are also entered there under conditions or at the bottom under remarks. So if you have any inquiries regarding a co-op permit, you're welcome to contact the international office here, the International Center, at the email there on the slide, and we'll be happy to assist you with any inquiries that you may have or concerns. There's a lot of myths and facts, myths surrounding international students and the hiring of international students, especially at that co-op level. And these are just a couple of them. There's a lot more, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to address some of those myths and address them. So this is the myth buster component of our presentation. So sometimes there's a myth that, hiring international students is going to be too complicated. Maybe too much paperwork, or I've got to get, legal people on behalf. Well, the reality is that they already come prepared. They already have acquired their work permit, their co-op permit before this process. And that's where the co-op offices come into play, that part of their requirement is that they need to apply for a work permit well before that hiring process begins. So absolutely, it is not complicated in order for you to hire an international student. Once again, a myth that I need to support them somehow or provide documentation also is a complete myth there. You do not need to support them in any way, whether it's an extension of the co-op permit or even the initial co-op permit itself. So nothing needs to come from the employer to support that co-op permit, not even a job offer. Another myth is that sometimes, there could be language barriers, and that could be an issue in the office and with other coworkers. Well, the reality is that all students have met academic requirements in order to even enter into Dalhousie. So, of course, there is an expectation that all of these students that are currently in co-op programs have a full English language proficiency in writing, in reading, and listening, and engaging with others. So they definitely are prepared in that front. Another myth is that, I'm going to be spending a lot of time and supporting these individuals and training, and they're just going to leave after graduation. Well, the reality is that many international students don't leave. They stay, and a lot of them are looking for PR opportunities, and they are transitioning into these permanent residency status. And the reason for that is they do have an opportunity to apply for a special work permit that's available to them called the post-graduation work permit. So if you find yourself with a really good international co-op worker and you want to hire them after they finish their degree, absolutely, you can hire them. They will be applying for that post-graduation work permit at the point of when they finish all their degree requirements, and they can then begin essentially working immediately while waiting for the postgraduate work permit to be processed, provided, of course, they met all the eligibility requirements. So there you go. There's also a lot of, we also created this frequently asked questions for employers when you do hire international students. So do they need a co-op work permit for co-op placements? Absolutely. At this point in time, they do. Especially if they're being salaried. They do need a co-op permit as per the requirements of IRCC. However, from what I've been hearing, there could be possible changes in the future, and I'm sure the office will let you know about that. Do you need to apply for a work permit for the student? As we mentioned earlier, absolutely not. You are not required to apply or support the co-op permit in any way. You do not need to do that. You don't need to apply for them, nor need to sponsor them. That is the responsibility of the student. And the International Center here at Dalhousie does support them in terms of helping them apply for that co-op permit. Can the international co-op student work for any employer? Absolutely. As I mentioned, it is an open work permit. They can work for multiple employers, depending on how many placements they have, and in any location. So not to worry there. Do I need to complete anything in terms of paperwork? No, absolutely not. So there's no changes that you need to be made to your onboarding or your hiring processes at all. They also come with social insurance numbers, so that there's easy processing in terms of payroll as well. And just to reiterate once again, the co-op permit does not require an LMIA. It's exempt, so therefore you do not have to apply for an LMIA for a co-op student. Some other information, questions. Can I hire an international student for a regular job instead of a co-op? Absolutely. The study permit that every student has here at Dalhousie, the majority also have work conditions listed on their work permits. And provided that if they are registered full-time, except during the breaks, of course, they can work up to 24 hours per week off campus. So this is wonderful, and this is separate from the work permit. So this is an absolute opportunity for you to hire a student if you wish after their co-op finishes. Of course, being mindful of the 24 hours per week. Another thing just to add to this is that even while a student is doing a co-op placement, they can still work 24 hours per week in another position or another job that has nothing to do with their co-op placement. So technically they could be doing two different jobs. Do I need to deduct taxes for international co-op students? Yes, you do. You are subject to tax deductions. All students are domestic or international, and this includes CPP, EI, and income tax, unless they're exempt under certain tax treaties. And I don't think you're going to have anyone like that, but if you do, we can definitely support you on that. Do international co-op students need special accommodation? Not necessarily. However, some students may need that extra support in adjusting Canadian work culture. Mind you, the majority of international students who are participating in their co-op placement already in their, I would say, second to third year, if I'm not mistaken, depending on the program. So they've already been well adjusted, I believe, to the Canadian culture. And if I'm not mistaken, may have to attend, depending on their program, additional sort of support courses or modules that they need to participate in. And that really helps them adjust to the Canadian workplace culture and understand it. Can international students continue working with us after their co-op? Absolutely. As I mentioned, once if they're not done their program yet, they can work off campus 24 hours per week. However, if they're finishing their degrees, they're going to be most likely applying for this post-graduation work permit, and you can then hire that student that has been working with you for the past couple of co-op placements. So absolutely, there's an opportunity.
And also, Teresa, there was one that was skipped there. Can international students receive benefits like domestic employees?
Yes, they can. Apologies for the oversight there. They can receive benefits, any benefit whatsoever, but just like a domestic student.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I know that you're all here because you want to hear about hiring international students, but I thought it was also a good opportunity to include this slide, because we do have some employers where their job posting, because they're getting federal funding or they're in a very high security environment, they do need to hire a Canadian citizen. So just to make it clear, when you post a job on our job posting portal called My Career, there's a button that you can click when in the job posting template that says Canadian citizenship is required. So we want to make it clear that yes, tick that box, but that doesn't exclude international students from being able to apply. They can still apply. Maybe they're just hoping that they're going to stand out and this requirement won't apply to them, an exception will be made, but you most likely will still get international students who apply even though that button is ticked. You can also put a note in your job explaining that you need Canadian citizenship and why maybe you're getting the federal FSWEP funding. But again, international students may apply. So we just want to make sure that employers know that you probably still will get applications from international students. So you have to do your due diligence when you're screening your applications and interviewing students to find out if they have the citizenship that you require. So we wanted to include that slide to make sure you know it's your ultimate responsibility to ensure that whoever you hire meet your eligibility requirements or your funding programs. If you get into that kind of a situation, just contact the co-op office and we can provide more information. But yes.
Anyone have any questions? Here are some resources, one to the Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada website, as well as some other great resources through CWIL Canada, which is the Canadian Association for Work Integrated Learning. And we're here to help. Our contacts are there. Feel free to reach out anytime.
In my experience, I've worked in the co-op office a long time. I do find international students can be highly motivated, more motivated even than local students to relocate. They've put a lot into their education, a big commitment, and they are, I found more often than not, they're the ones that are more willing to go to rural locations in Nova Scotia. And we've had some successes, real great successes, where students have been made to feel really welcome in these communities by the whole community. So I do want to encourage that. I also want to mention the note that was just put in the chat by my colleague Paul, that due to privacy reasons, we can't let employers know if our students are international versus Canadian. So
Good point.
Yeah, that's upon you as an employer to gather that information during your screening and interview process.
Thank you for joining us, whether or not it's through your lunch or not, but thank you so much for being part of this webinar, and we hope to see you at future webinars. And reach out anytime if you have any question. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us from the International Center. Valuable information, and employers, thank you again for joining us.